Welcome to World War II Indiana Landmarks, Episode 21, the Indiana Military Museum and the World War II story of native son Red Skelton. I'm your host, Ron May, author of the book, World War II Indiana Landmarks. We move into the southern third of the state in this episode as we travel down Interstate 69 and west along State Highway 150 to historic Vincennes, Indiana, home to the Indiana Military Museum. Vincennes is Indiana's oldest town. Located within the congressionally drawn boundaries of the former Northwest Territory, the town was founded by French fur traders in 1772. Today, it is a city known for her jewels of Hoosier history. The city is nestled on the Indiana-Illinois border along the Wabash River in southwest Indiana. Vincennes was the site of Fort Sackville, later named Fort Vincennes, and the battle won by George Rogers Clark and his men as they defeated the British in 1779 during the Revolutionary War. Today, the George Rogers Clark Memorial along the river commemorates the man and the victory in the cause for freedom. The town also became the first capital for the Indiana Territory in 1800. Historic buildings from that era are prime tourist sites today. In 1984, the city welcomed the Indiana Military Museum as another great attraction to celebrate Indiana history and the cause for freedom. The museum came into existence through the leadership of Knox County Superior Court Judge Jim R. Osborne, who had been a collector of military artifacts for many years. Osborne, a Vincennes native, is both chairman of the museum's board and its curator. In the early 1980s, people began suggesting that Osborne turn his private collection into a museum. He embraced the idea. In 1982, he and interested friends formed a not-for-profit museum corporation and opened the first museum in 1987. Continued growth in Osborne's collection necessitated a relocation to larger property and facilities. In the summer of 2012, the museum moved to a 14-acre site and celebrated a grand opening in May 2013. The site included a 6,000-square-foot exhibition center and a large warehouse for storage. In 2019, the 8,000-square-foot warehouse was renovated to display new exhibits. Inside the renovated warehouse, which has now become the museum annex, are 10 life-size diorama exhibits that immerse visitors in the combat experiences from World War I to the present. The American Homefront exhibit includes cutaway views outside and inside a typical 1940s home. Visitors experience a glimpse of life for Americans at the outset of World War II. It's a step back in time, showing all the modern conveniences of 1940 living. A World War II barracks cutaway brings the war closer to home and gives visitors a glimpse of the military training environment for the men and women who prepared for war. The World War II European Theater diorama features an 80-foot-long replica wall of a bombed-out Gothic cathedral. Formerly constructed for a Hollywood movie set, the cathedral backdrop now conveys the war in Normandy. The facade includes broken stained glass windows and pockholes from bullets and mortars hitting the stone block. U.S., British, and German vehicles and tanks, as well as artillery pieces, are lined along both walls of the church. Above the exhibit, U.S. paratroopers are shown descending into the battle. Adding to the experience are recorded sounds of military planes that accompany moving shadows on the floor, which mimic planes passing overhead, all of which gives a realistic feel to the combat setting. Equally impressive is an exhibit of an authentic landing craft vehicle personnel, LCVP, also known as a Higgins boat, that carried troops from the ships to the shore. One of 12 known restored LCVPs to exist in the world, the display shows the ramp down and allows the visitor to see the inside of the craft, which could hold 25 to 30 men or a jeep and several men. From the exhibit, you can also see how the soldiers climb down the cargo nets hanging from the hull of the ship to board it. This disembarking process was repeated in the Normandy and Italian campaigns and dozens of times in the Pacific theater as Allied forces leapfrogged from island to island in their combat path toward Japan. Completing the Pacific Theater exhibits are U.S. and Japanese tanks and artillery, along with soldier mannequins in uniform, set in a recreated jungle combat scene and beach landing environment. A Japanese soldier mannequin and artillery piece are also on display. The American Homefront exhibit includes a manufacturing exhibit showing the importance of war production and the vital role of women making war products. Rosie the Riveter mannequins appear to be making plane parts with authentic lathes and drill presses at the exhibit. On the grounds outside the museum annex, visitors will find tracked and amphibious vehicles, many of them from World War II. These include an amphibious landing vehicle tracked LVT-4 and a six-wheel amphibious vehicle referred to as a duck. Outside of the museum is a large area for displaying many different types of planes used in the wars. Among them are several World War II planes. Stretching their proud wings are a C-47 and a C-45 cargo plane, among other war-era aircraft. Greeting visitors at the entrance to the museum's exhibit building is a torpedo display from the USS Grayback submarine, SS-208, known as the Gray Ghost, that was lost at sea between Luzon and Formosa in February 1944 while on her 10th patrol. Inside the museum's exhibit center, glass-encased displays and freestanding artifacts are arranged chronologically from the Revolutionary War to the more recent war in Afghanistan. In the display commemorating D-Day are jump jackets worn by the paratroopers along with their field equipment. There is also a display featuring artifacts from infamous Adolf Hitler's place in World War II history. Other interesting and historical items include a map used by Doolittle Raid pilot Ted Lawson, who crash-landed in China following the bombings of Tokyo in 1942. One display shows the photo and other memorabilia on the youngest Navy pilot in World War II, John Cooper, who was from Vincennes. In the Pacific War display, visitors can view Japanese tanks and see some of the black volcanic ash sand from Iwo Jima, where so many Marines bled and died to secure the island and raise the U.S. flag. Even some ground zero objects from the bombed city of Hiroshima, Japan, are on display, along with other end-of-the-war artifacts. Many of the other World War II display cases are used to present the personal service stories and artifacts of local Vincennes and Knox County veterans. Among those is the display of favorite hometown son and beloved Hoosier entertainer, Richard "Red" Skelton. The museum displays one of his military uniforms and other memorabilia. Born in 1913 in Vincennes, Skelton got an early start in the entertainment business as a teenager, appearing in a circus. At the age of 15, he was on the road full-time, working a circuit of entertainment venues. By 1941, he had his own radio show and became a household name. He used his fame and his shows to help sell war bonds after the U.S. entered World War II. In March 1944, Skelton was drafted into the Army, and his radio show was discontinued. Although content to serve as an infantryman, he was soon assigned to an Army entertainment unit as a performing arts specialist. Following his training at the Washington and Lee College, Army Special Service School, he performed shows for troops in Virginia and New Jersey, often doing 12 shows in a day. In April 1945, he was shipped overseas to entertain Army units at Camp Darby in Italy. A month later, Skelton suffered a nervous breakdown, possibly due to the exhaustive number of shows he was performing. He spent the remainder of the war in a hospital at Camp Pickett, Virginia, and was honorably discharged in September that same year. Skelton returned to the world of entertainment following the end of the war. Today, his life and career as an entertainer are preserved in the Red Skelton Museum of American Comedy, also in Vincennes. Adding much to the museum's appeal and educational value is an extensive outdoor area behind the museum exhibit building, which has been converted into a battlefield and used for hosting living history events since 2008. Several times a year, military reenactors come from all around the Midwest to set up camps with displays of authentic era equipment and recreate battles from World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, often using some of the museum's vehicles. The weekend events pay tribute to the veterans who fought in each war. Be sure to check out the Indiana Military Museum and discover the artifacts and stories of World War II history connected to the state of Indiana. Learn more about the Indiana Military Museum and those who served in my new book, World War II Indiana Landmarks, available for purchase on my website or wherever books are sold. And while on my website, check out my trilogy of Indiana World War II service stories. Thanks for tuning in to this episode.